A long time ago, in ancient India, there was a kingdom called Vikramgarh, ruled by a very cruel and merciless king, Vikral Singh. Every day, the king would marry a new girl, and the very next day, he would have his new bride hanged. All his subjects were very sad because of the king's harsh and cruel decisions. The king's ministers and courtiers were also very unhappy with him, but they didn't have the courage to express their displeasure or try to reason with him. An eerie silence along with a strange fear prevailed throughout the kingdom. Let's hear the whole story. In ancient India, there was a kingdom, Vikramgarh. This kingdom was known for its prosperity and happiness. The people here were hard-working and honest. But the wheel of time turned, and a dark shadow fell upon Vikramgarh. The king of this state was Vikral Singh. The entire kingdom was terrified of his cruelty. People were afraid to leave their homes after sunset. Every day witnessed a new tragedy. Screams echoed in the air of Vikramgarh, but no one dared to raise their voice against the king. Vikramgarh had a magnificent beginning. There was an atmosphere of greenery and prosperity all around. Farmers worked hard in their fields, and the market was bustling. People helped each other, and everyone lived a happy life. The people here were very hard-working and honest. They worked together and were ready to help everyone. There was an atmosphere of laughter and happiness in the village, and everyone lived together in harmony. But the wheel of time turned, and a dark shadow fell upon Vikramgarh. Suddenly, everything changed. Dark clouds filled the sky, and an atmosphere of fear descended upon the village. People were no longer happy as before, and lines of worry were clearly visible on everyone's faces. The king of this state was Vikral Singh. He was very cruel and merciless. The entire kingdom was terrified of his cruelty. He oppressed his people and spared no one. In his eyes, everyone was guilty and deserved punishment. The entire kingdom was terrified of his cruelty. People trembled at his name. They stayed hidden in their homes and were afraid to go out. Fear had gripped everyone's hearts, and they spoke to each other in whispers. People were afraid to leave their homes after sunset. As evening fell, the streets of the village became deserted. Everyone would lock themselves in their homes and close their doors. The atmosphere of fear intensified as darkness fell. Every day witnessed a new tragedy. Sometimes there would be floods, sometimes droughts. People struggled to save their lives. There was destruction everywhere in the village, and people cursed their fate. Screams echoed in the air of Vikramgarh, but no one dared to raise their voice against the king. People locked themselves in their homes and prayed to God that these bad times would soon end. But everyone was helpless against the cruelty of King Vikral Singh. The story of Vikramgarh is a story that teaches us how difficult it is to live under the shadow of fear and oppression. King Vikral Singh was a merciless and cruel ruler. His heart was made of stone. He didn't care about anyone's feelings. The king married a new girl every day. The next morning, the poor girl would be hanged. No one knew why the king did this. People just knew that King Vikral Singh was a monster who was making their lives a living hell. In a small village, far from the kingdom, lived a great magician. His name was Vishwakarma. He had a daughter, Sudhishna. Sudhishna was very beautiful, but even more than her beauty was her intelligence and compassion. She knew about the plight of Vikramgarh. One day Sudhishna said to her father, "Father, I want to go to Vikramgarh. I want to marry King Vikral Singh." Vishwakarma was shocked by his daughter's decision. "Sudhishna, are you crazy? King Vikral Singh is a monster. He will kill you too." "Father, I know what I'm doing. I believe I can change the king's heart," Sudhishna said firmly. Vishwakarma was proud of his daughter's courage and compassion. He blessed Sudhishna and sent her to Vikramgarh. There was a sad story behind King Vikral Singh's cruelty. His first wife, Queen Rupvati, was very beautiful and kind. The king loved Rupvati very much, but one day Rupvati died under mysterious circumstances. King Vikral Singh could not bear this shock. His heart broke and he became cruel. He vowed that he would not let any woman come close to his heart. Sudhishna reached Vikramgarh and presented herself before the king. She expressed her desire to marry the king. King Vikral Singh was astonished to see Sudhishna's beauty and courage. He decided to marry Sudhishna. The news spread through the city like wildfire. People were praying for Sudhishna. After the wedding, Sudhishna was taken to the king's chamber. Walking through the corridors of the grand palace, she carried many questions and apprehensions in her heart. There was a strange glint in her eyes, as if she was preparing for a big decision. The king, as always, was angry and indifferent. There was a deep sadness and despair in his eyes, as if he was nursing an old wound. Everyone in the palace was familiar with the king's nature and feared him. Sudhishna knew she had to do something different to win the king's heart. Lost in thought, she was making many plans in her mind. She knew that pleasing the king would not be easy, but she was not one to give up. She said to the king, "Your Majesty, I want to tell you a story." There was a strange sweetness and confidence in her voice that caught the king's attention. The king looked at her, a question in his eyes. The king sarcastically said, "A story? Do you think I'm a child?" There was a sharp taunt in his voice, as if he wasn't taking Sudhishna's words seriously. But Sudhishna did not give up. Sudhishna said in a calm voice, "This is no ordinary story, Your Majesty. This story will touch your heart and give you a new perspective." There was a strange firmness in her voice that made the king think. This is the story of a merchant and a demon. It's a story of courage, love, and sacrifice. This story will teach you that true love and courage can overcome any obstacle. Sudhishna began her story, and the king listened attentively, a new sparkle in his eyes. Sudhishna began the story. Once upon a time, there was a merchant who was passing through a forest. Suddenly, he encountered a fearsome demon. The demon was about to kill the merchant when the merchant showed him a magical necklace. The necklace had the power of love and compassion. Seeing the light of the necklace, the demon's anger subsided. He let the merchant go and himself started walking on the path of goodness. Sudhishna finished the story and looked into the king's eyes. There was a sparkle in her eyes, as if she had seen something changing in the king's heart. She felt that her words had touched the king's heart. For the first time, remorse and sadness were visible in King Vikral Singh's eyes. He was remembering those moments of his life when he had made wrong decisions. There was a deep thought in his eyes, as if he was reliving his past. Sudhishna said softly, "Your Majesty, there is goodness in everyone's heart. We just need to recognize and awaken it. There is a tenderness in your power and strength too, which you probably never felt. We just need to awaken it. It is the greatest truth of life that goodness is hidden within every human being. Sometimes we just need someone to show us our goodness." King Vikral Singh realized his mistakes. He realized that he had made many mistakes in his life, but now he could correct them. There was a ray of new hope in his eyes. He had lost himself in the memory of Queen Rupvati. Her memories always bothered him, but now he understood that he had to move on. He kindled the hope of a new beginning in his heart. But Sudhishna's story made him realize that he had to come out of the past. He realized that to move forward in life, he had to leave his past behind and step in a new direction. Sudhishna's words had kindled a new light in his heart. The next morning, the king announced that he would not marry any other girl. He apologized for his mistakes and promised the people that he would be a just and kind ruler. Happiness returned to Vikramgarh. Sudhishna's wisdom and compassion had changed King Vikral Singh's heart. This story teaches us that the power of love and morality is the greatest. It can even transform evil into good. Let us know what you thought of this story in the comments.